subscribe and leave a comment below. r/AskReddit. Parents of Reddit, what is the weirdest thing you caught your children doing? Caught my 2-year-old son licking the floor. He seemed really into it. My 2-year-old licks our cars. My mom caught me bringing eggs from the kitchen into my room and sitting on them in a blanket nest, hoping they'd hatch. What she didn't catch was that I had been doing this for a while and would put the eggs back into the fridge when they wouldn't hatch after a few days. When my son was about 3 years old, he liked to wash his eyebrows with my facial cleanser. Just the eyebrows. Wet, lather, rinse, repeat. He said it made them nice and soft. My 3-year-old's first joke was, "Hey, look at my armpit," and she would point at her armpit and laugh. She would do this over and over. They warn you about first steps and first words, but first joke? I am a proud dad. Edit. Thanks for the gold. I'll give my daughter a gold star tomorrow. My brother decided he wanted a pee hat, which is literally what it sounds like. A hat he could pee in during the night. While already a stupid idea, since he didn't empty it, he chose a plastic hat with hole in it. Edit. It was a toy construction hat with 2/4 holes in the top, meaning his makeshift toilet had 2/4 holes for the pee to leak from, and he was keeping it in his toy box. When my daughter was little, old ladies would come over and enthusiastically ask her simple questions, like "What's your name?" and she would always reply in flat monotone, "Birthday cake." Then they'd ask another question like, "Oh, well, how old are you?" and she'd say, "Birthday cake." They would look over at us with great concern. So annoying. I saw my kid, who was 4, in the backyard looking for bugs or worms. He grabbed something and put it in his mouth. I asked him about a few minutes later. He said he ate a worm. I laughed and asked why. He said he wanted to know what it tasted like. So I asked, "What did it taste like?" He said it tasted like mud. The next day I asked him if he really ate a worm. He replied, "Yay," in the most defeated and embarrassed way any human could. "You live, you'll learn, eh?" My 5-year-old nephew went to feed the chickens yesterday. I told him to get a hat. He came back fully naked with gumboots and a straw hat on. Apparently the last time he went to the chicken house they pecked at his junk, and he wants to show them that it's not big enough to eat yet. Kids are weird. If chickens pecked at my junk, I'd put many more layers on it instead of exposing it. I caught my twins in 1st grade measuring each other's penises with a tape measure they got to measure their heads in 1st grade for bike helmets. I walk in after their baths and one is on his back with his legs in the air. Of course my husband said, "That's not something you do until high school." Packing turds into cardboard tubes with toilet paper and hiding them under the sink. She called them poop bombs. There was like 10 of them under there. Did she have specific plans for them? Like selected targets, or just making a stockpile for what if situations? When my brother-in-law was 3, he was so obsessed with a toilet plunger they had to buy him his own so he'd stop grabbing the used one. It was his best friend. Once my cousin took her preschooler to our version of the dollar store and let her pick something for everyone in the family for a Christmas present. She bought my uncle, her grandfather, a plunger. He spent most of that Christmas with it stuck to his bald head. He's a good sort. I woke up to my 5-year-old spraying Windex on the window beside my bed, cleaning it thoroughly, then nodding at me and moving on to cleaning the windows in the next room. I still don't know what the hell was happening. Edit. She told me before bed that it needed cleaned so her cat could look out. The bottom of the windows gets smeared because the cats push their faces against it, so she wanted it clean for them. At the time, I was pregnant with my 2nd child. I walked past the bathroom and heard my firstborn son, who was about 1.5 years old, in there making coughing sounds. I go in to look and he was standing by the toilet coughing into it. I had horrible morning sickness and he was mimicking me throwing up. Just the other day I saw my 3-year-old head to the bathroom and I hear splashing. In a light panic I run to the bathroom thinking I'm going to have to figure out how to get a plumber during quarantine. I walked in and he's just standing in front of the toilet plunging away absolutely correctly with his Hot Wheels on the floor and not in the toilet. Damn kid refuses to use the toilet but he's more than happy to plunge it of his own accord. My youngest daughter was about 18 months old. She had, about a week before, discovered how to climb out of her own crib. Also, about a month before, she had once taken off her own diaper, not a repeat event but a one-time thing. My mill was visiting us, and we were all slow to wake up. Around 7:30, the baby monitor alerted me that my daughter was awake, but happy and content in her crib. I let my wife sleep in, and I grabbed a quick 5-minute shower before going to grab her. When I got there, she had put the two pieces, climb out of crib and take off diaper together, and used them to repaint her room. I will never recover from the trauma of the smell. Let's see. My daughter was drinking strawberry milk and then spitting it back into the cup so she could drink it again. I had hosed off a tarp and it was drying on the patio. We went outside and she just stooped down and took a drink out of a puddle on the tarp. Just today I was in the garage and she came out, instantly grabbed a toothbrush I used to clean car parts and stuck it in her mouth. I don't even know anymore. A little girl I was babysitting was slowly stirring her bowl of chocolate ice cream into mush. I asked her what she was doing, and she replied very seriously, "I'm making poo-poo, forgot to put in people's bottoms." We caught my sons, maybe 6 and 3 at the time, both sitting on the toilet together, one behind the other, pooping. They told us it was a double poop. We forbid them from ever doing that again. Is it weird that my brother and I also did that when we were young? Multiple times. Not for fun, but if one of us needed to go really badly and the other was using the toilet. Why did I go into detail? Help. Not a parent, but when I was a kid I used to prefer to poop in the park closest to my house instead of at home. I used to wonder who cleaned up my poop every day because the poop was always gone by the next day. After months of doing this I found out a neighbor mom was the one who kept cleaning up my poop. I was mid-poop one sunny afternoon when I saw her walking towards the park from her condo across the road with a baggie, probably because she had a chore every day that included going to the park to clean up my poop before her children could go play. I was squatted atop the playground in one of those wooden cubicles at the top of a slide, peering out through a crack between the wooden pillars, watching the neighbor mom coming closer, trying to finish my poop at a rapid pace. I finished my poop, didn't wipe, because I was a disgusting child pooping in a park, yanked my pants up and flew my poopy ass down the slide and booked it through the field to home base, raced through the door and continued to live my best life until there was a knock on the door. My mom answered the door and to my horror there was neighbor lady, and she and my mom had a long talk and outside on the front step. When my mom came in she looked at me with pure disgust and said no more pooping at the park. My older brother's friends were over and overheard my mom scream that at me. They demanded to know the whole story. Then when I started kindergarten, one of the children of the poop picker upper neighbor mom was in a grade ahead of me and recognized me and told everyone what I had done. I was and always will be the park pooper. Edit. I did not have a very good childhood. I should definitely clarify that. I have no explanation other than I was probably neglected. I'm shocked at how this blew up. Thought I was just telling my poop story. Thanks guys. Packing peas from our garden up her nose. This required a trip to the local hospital emergency room, where the doctor, a dad of several young children himself, thought it was hilariously funny. So my wife and I were laughing as well. When my little brother was 3, he's 25 now, he stuck an M&M up his nose. The doctors said to just let it melt. The babysitter was quite concerned when red and then brown started dripping out of his nose. For a while, our family joked that M&Ms melt in your nose, not in your hand. The M&M slogan at the time was they melt in your mouth, not in your hand. I was the child. I was in my backyard and noticed there were a lot of slugs around since it had been raining. I was concerned that they had nowhere to go and they would be stuck outside where they would drown in the rain. So I went to the garage and got a bin and went around collecting every slug I could find. Then I got the idea to make it into a miniature city. I put in water, muff sticks, etc. and it became a project of mine that I maintained for weeks. Well, one day my mom walks outside for whatever reason and finds me holding a bin that's just full of slugs. She made me put them back and hose the bin down. I was pissed I lost all my hard work. When my son was 3 years old, we noticed the smell of burnt plastic coming from our heater vents. I called one of our friends that works in heating and cooling and he came over. Our furnace was in our crawl space so he went down. About 15 minutes later, he asked me to hand him 3 black garbage bags through one of the vents so I did so. He came up later with 3 bags of plastic toys. I had wondered where all my son's toys were going. I asked my son why he was putting toys down the vents. He said, "Mommy, there are alligators down there and if I don't feed them my toys, they will eat my sister." When my son was 3, he had night terrors for a few months. At least that's what I suspected. I was really concerned. The most unsettling thing he did wasn't waking up sobbing though. Sometimes he would wake up around midnight, walk to where I was, stare at me and then walk back to bed. He wouldn't respond to me and just sit on his bed while staring at the ground. If I tried to comfort him, he would become angry and violent. Next morning, he'd be his normal self. At that time he would often ask if ghosts were real. We never exposed him to anything with that sort of content. I'd try to reassure him that they were just imaginary. He would insist that they were real. Sometimes at night he would call me to his room and say someone was there. I was freaking out a little. Not just by the idea that my child was seeing strange shit but that he might be suffering from psychological issues. My wife insisted that this wasn't something to be concerned about. She's a psychologist and I respected her opinion but I just couldn't stop worrying. I felt like I needed to help my kid. Anyhow, it became less and less frequent and stopped altogether for the most part. He still asks about and insists that ghosts are real from time to time, but he isn't scared at night anymore. Don't forget to subscribe and share your story in the comment.